The first time a macaw cuts through the air above the rainforest, it does not appear fragile or decorative. It appears deliberate. Heavy wings move with slow authority, feathers catching fragments of sunlight as if the forest itself is reflecting off its body. This is not coincidence. The macaw is not a creature designed for subtlety. It is designed for recognition, endurance, and memory, shaped by an environment where survival depends not on speed alone, but on awareness, intelligence, and long-term adaptation. To understand the macaw, one must step far back in time, to an era when tropical forests were expanding and contracting across ancient continents. The ancestors of modern parrots emerged in a world dominated by dense vegetation, unpredictable climates, and fierce competition for resources. Flight alone was not enough. Animals that survived were those capable of learning, remembering, and cooperating. Over millions of years, selective pressure favored birds with larger brains, complex vocal abilities, and strong social instincts. From this evolutionary experiment, the macaw slowly took form. Unlike many birds whose evolutionary success relies on rapid reproduction and short lifespans, macaws followed a different path. They invested in longevity. A long life allowed learning to accumulate. Experience became as valuable as instinct. This choice reshaped every aspect of their biology. Their brains grew larger relative to body size, their juvenile development slowed, and parental care became extensive. A macaw chick does not enter the world ready to survive, it enters ready to learn. The physical form of the macaw reflects this strategy. The beak, one of the most iconic features, is not simply a feeding tool. It is an instrument of interaction with the environment. Built from dense keratin and reinforced bone, the beak can exert enormous pressure, cracking seeds that would defeat most animals. But strength is only part of its function. The beak is used to climb, to explore, to test objects, and to manipulate food with surprising precision. In many ways, it functions as a hand, allowing the macaw to engage with its surroundings in ways few birds can. Feathers, too, tell a deeper story than color alone suggests. The intense reds, blues, yellows, and greens of macaws are often misunderstood as risky displays in predator-rich environments. Yet in the filtered light of tropical forests, these colors behave differently. They fracture outlines, blend with flowers and fruits, and break the visual expectations of predators. At the same time, they allow macaws to identify each other instantly across long distances. Color becomes both camouflage and communication, a dual-purpose adaptation refined over countless generations. Flight in macaws is energy-efficient rather than agile. Their wings are long and powerful, designed for sustained travel rather than rapid maneuvering. This reflects their ecological role. Macaws often travel many kilometers each day, moving between feeding areas, clay licks, nesting sites, and roosting trees. Such movement demands not only physical endurance but mental mapping. A macaw must remember where resources are located, when they become available, and how to reach them safely. Navigation is not instinctive alone, it is learned and reinforced through experience. From the moment a chick hatches, learning becomes its primary task. Born blind and helpless, it relies entirely on its parents. The nest, often a cavity high in an old tree, becomes a classroom. Parents feed the chick regurgitated food, but more importantly, they expose it to sounds, rhythms, and social cues. Calls exchanged between adults are heard and remembered. Movements are observed, patterns are absorbed. By the time a young macaw leaves the nest, it carries not only physical strength but a growing library of environmental knowledge. This prolonged childhood is rare among birds and costly in evolutionary terms. Fewer offspring are produced, and each one represents a significant investment. But the payoff is resilience. A macaw that survives infancy is equipped with tools that increase its chances of long-term survival. It can adapt to changing conditions, recognize danger, and integrate into complex social networks. Intelligence becomes a survival trait, not a luxury. As macaws mature, their social world expands. They rarely exist as isolated individuals. Instead, they form bonds that shape their daily lives. Pair bonding is central. Many macaws form lifelong partnerships, a strategy that stabilizes reproduction and cooperation. These bonds are reinforced through constant interaction, synchronized flight, mutual grooming, shared vigilance. Trust becomes an evolutionary asset. Communication is the backbone of this social system. Macaw vocalizations are loud, but they are not random. Each call carries information, location, identity, emotional state, and alarm signals are encoded in sound. In dense forests where visibility is limited, sound becomes the primary means of coordination. A macaw knows not only that another is nearby, but who it is. Individual recognition allows social structures to remain intact even in large groups. Intelligence reveals itself most clearly in problem-solving behavior. Macaws can observe others and learn through imitation. They can remember solutions to challenges and apply them in new contexts. This cognitive flexibility allows them to exploit resources that are temporally or spatially unpredictable. A fruit tree that produces only once a year is not forgotten. A dangerous food source is remembered. Mistakes become lessons, not repeated errors. Diet further illustrates the macaw's adaptive complexity. Fruits, nuts, seeds, and leaves form the bulk of their nutrition, but many of these foods contain natural toxins. Rather than avoiding them, macaws developed a chemical counterstrategy. By consuming mineral-rich clay from exposed riverbanks, they neutralize toxins and supplement their diet with essential nutrients. This behavior, once mysterious, is now understood as a sophisticated biochemical adaptation. The forest provides challenges, the macaw responds with innovation. Habitat is inseparable from identity. Macaws are products of tropical ecosystems that demand constant negotiation with change. Seasonal floods, shifting fruiting cycles, and predator movements require flexibility. Nesting sites are chosen with care, balancing safety, accessibility, and microclimate. Old trees become vital infrastructure, reused across generations. When such trees disappear, entire social systems collapse. Beyond individual survival, macaws play a role that extends outward into the forest itself. As they feed, they disperse seeds across wide areas, connecting plant populations and supporting regeneration. Some trees depend heavily on large birds like macaws for reproduction. Remove the bird, and the forest slowly changes. This interconnectedness makes macaws keystone species, their presence influencing ecosystems far beyond their numbers. By the time a macaw reaches adulthood, it embodies millions of years of evolutionary experimentation. Strength, intelligence, memory, and sociality are not separate traits but integrated systems. The macaw is not simply surviving in the rainforest, it is participating in it, shaping and being shaped in return. And yet, this balance is fragile. As a macaw moves through the rainforest, it does not move as an individual navigating chaos. It moves as a node within a living network of memory, sound, and social connection. Every flight path, every call, every pause on a branch is shaped by an invisible architecture built from relationships. For macaws, survival is not a solitary achievement. It is collective, negotiated daily through cooperation, recognition, and trust. The foundation of this system is social bonding. From an early age, young macaws begin to orient themselves toward others. They learn not only how to feed and fly, but how to belong. Social awareness develops alongside physical coordination. A juvenile that fails to integrate socially is as vulnerable as one that fails to feed efficiently. In macaw societies, connection is protection. Pair bonds sit at the center of this structure. These bonds are not temporary arrangements formed only for breeding. They are long-term alliances that can last decades. A bonded pair shares information constantly, adjusting behavior in response to subtle cues. A shift in posture, a change in call tone, a pause in flight, all are signals interpreted within the partnership. This level of synchronization allows pairs to act almost as a single unit, improving vigilance against predators and efficiency in resource acquisition. The emotional dimension of these bonds is real and measurable. When separated, bonded macaws show signs of stress, increased vocalization, agitation, changes in feeding behavior. Reunion restores equilibrium. This is not anthropomorphism, it is behavioral evidence of attachment systems shaped by evolution. In a world where long lifespans and slow reproduction demand stability, emotional bonding becomes adaptive. Beyond pairs, macaws participate in larger social groupings that shift with season and resource availability. Flocks form around feeding sites, mineral licks, and communal roosts. These gatherings are dynamic, expanding and contracting as individuals come and go. Within them, hierarchies are fluid rather than rigid. Dominance is often situational, based on experience, age, or familiarity with a resource rather than brute force. Communication is the mechanism that keeps this fluid system functional. Macaw vocalizations are among the most complex in the avian world. Calls vary in pitch, rhythm, and duration, each variation carrying meaning. Some calls maintain contact during flight, preventing individuals from becoming isolated. Others signal alarm, triggering coordinated responses across a group. Still others reinforce social bonds, functioning as auditory grooming that maintains cohesion even at a distance. Crucially, macaws are capable of vocal learning. They do not rely solely on inherited calls. They adapt their vocalizations based on social context, learning the dialects of local groups. This allows integration across regions and generations, reducing conflict and facilitating cooperation. Sound becomes a cultural artifact, transmitted and modified over time. This cultural transmission extends beyond communication into behavior. Feeding strategies, migration routes, and responses to danger are learned socially. A young macaw observing older individuals at a clay lick learns not only where to find minerals, but when it is safe to descend, how long to remain, and how to react to threats. These lessons are not encoded genetically, they are absorbed through observation and repetition. Such reliance on learning makes macaws extraordinarily adaptable, but it also introduces vulnerability. When experienced individuals are removed from a population through hunting, trade, or habitat loss, knowledge disappears with them. The forest remains, but the map is lost. Younger birds are left to navigate without guidance, increasing mortality and reducing reproductive success. Habitat itself is not a static backdrop but an active participant in macaw life. Tropical ecosystems are defined by cycles, wet and dry seasons, fruiting and flowering patterns, river fluctuations. Macaws synchronize their movements with these cycles, timing breeding to periods of abundance and adjusting travel routes as resources shift. Memory bridges gaps between seasons, allowing macaws to anticipate rather than react. Nesting behavior illustrates this anticipation clearly. Macaws do not select nesting sites randomly. Cavities are chosen based on depth, orientation, height, and thermal properties. These factors influence chick survival by regulating temperature and reducing predator access. Suitable cavities are rare and valuable, often reused year after year. Competition for them can be intense, not only among macaws but with other cavity-dependent species. When forests are intact, this competition remains balanced. When forests are fragmented, balance collapses. The removal of old trees eliminates nesting options, forcing macaws into suboptimal sites. Reproductive success declines, not because adults cannot breed, but because the environment no longer supports their strategy. The consequences unfold slowly, often unnoticed until populations drop below recovery thresholds. Dietary behavior further demonstrates the macaw's reliance on ecological complexity. Their food choices change with season and location, reflecting availability and nutritional needs. Fruits provide energy, seeds offer protein and fats, leaves contribute minerals. Toxins are an ever-present challenge, especially in seeds designed to deter consumption. Rather than avoiding these defenses entirely, macaws integrate them into a broader strategy that includes clay consumption and dietary diversity. Clay licks become social hubs as well as nutritional resources. Dozens, sometimes hundreds, of macaws gather at exposed riverbanks, descending in waves coordinated through vigilance and alarm calls. These gatherings are high-risk moments, with predators aware of the opportunity. Yet the nutritional payoff is essential, binding the behavior into the macaw's survival equation. Within these gatherings, social learning accelerates. Young birds observe which individuals descend first, how threats are assessed, and when retreat is necessary. Experience concentrates at the front of the group, knowledge radiating outward through imitation. This is not chaos, it is collective intelligence in action. Macaws also exhibit play behavior, particularly in juveniles. Chasing, object manipulation, and vocal experimentation serve no immediate survival function, yet they are critical for cognitive development. Play refines motor skills, tests social boundaries, and builds flexibility. In an environment where unpredictability is constant, the ability to improvise becomes a form of preparedness. As intelligence and social complexity increase, so does emotional depth. Macaws respond strongly to loss, disturbance, and disruption. Changes in group composition alter behavior patterns, sometimes leading to withdrawal or aggression. These responses underscore a key truth: macaws do not simply occupy space in the forest. They experience it. This experiential dimension complicates their interaction with humans. When macaws encounter altered landscapes, roads, clearings, noise, their responses are shaped by curiosity as much as fear. Intelligence draws them closer even as danger increases. This paradox places them at risk in environments increasingly shaped by human activity. By the midpoint of their long lives, macaws carry layers of memory, places visited, individuals known, dangers survived. Their behavior reflects accumulated experience, not momentary impulse. They are historians of their own landscapes, living records of forests that may no longer exist in the same form. And it is here, at the intersection of memory and change, that the macaw's greatest challenge emerges. By the time the modern world enters the story of the macaw, the bird is already ancient. Its biology, intelligence, and social systems were perfected long before the first human settlement disrupted tropical forests. For most of its evolutionary history, change came slowly, measured in climate shifts and geological time. What the macaw now faces is different. Change has accelerated beyond the pace of memory. Deforestation is not merely the removal of trees. For macaws, it is the erasure of maps. A cleared forest does not simply eliminate food, it dissolves the spatial logic that generations relied upon. Nesting cavities vanish, migration routes fracture, and familiar landmarks disappear. Macaws may still fly over these altered landscapes, but the environment no longer responds to their expectations. Memory, once a strength, becomes unreliable. Fragmentation intensifies this disruption. Forests broken into isolated patches restrict movement and isolate populations. Macaws, built for long-distance travel and social exchange, find themselves confined. Genetic diversity declines as groups lose contact with one another. Cultural knowledge, feeding strategies, safe routes, seasonal timing fails to spread. What once functioned as a connected system collapses into scattered remnants. Alongside habitat loss, the illegal wildlife trade strikes at the core of macaw society. Captured birds are not random losses, they are often juveniles or breeding adults, individuals central to social networks. Their removal creates voids that ripple outward. A missing adult means lost experience. A broken pair bond destabilizes reproduction. Entire groups can unravel from a single extraction. The trauma inflicted by captivity extends beyond the individual. Macaws are cognitively and emotionally complex. Isolation, confinement, and sensory deprivation damage behaviors shaped for dynamic environments. Even when rescued, reintegration into the wild is difficult. Survival requires not only physical health but cultural fluency, knowledge of calls, predators, food sources, and social cues. A macaw raised without these lessons is free in body but lost in context. Climate change compounds these pressures subtly but relentlessly. Altered rainfall patterns shift fruiting seasons. Droughts reduce food availability. Extreme weather events destroy nesting sites in moments. Macaws, dependent on predictable cycles, must adapt to increasing uncertainty. Intelligence offers some flexibility, but adaptation has limits. When environmental signals contradict learned patterns too often, survival strategies break down. Yet despite these forces, macaws persist. Their resilience is not accidental. It is rooted in their capacity for learning, cooperation, and adjustment. In protected habitats, populations stabilize. When old trees are preserved, nesting resumes. When trade is enforced, social structures recover. Given time and space, macaws demonstrate that recovery is possible. Conservation efforts increasingly recognize this complexity. Protecting macaws is not simply about saving a species, it is about preserving systems of memory and interaction. Habitat corridors reconnect fragmented forests. Community-based conservation aligns human livelihoods with ecological stability. Education reduces demand for illegal trade by reframing macaws not as ornaments, but as irreplaceable participants in living ecosystems. The role of macaws in these ecosystems cannot be overstated. As seed dispersers, they influence forest composition. As consumers of toxic fruits, they regulate plant populations. As social communicators, they model cooperation in environments where individualism fails. Remove them, and the forest loses not only color, but coherence. In observing macaws, humans confront uncomfortable parallels. Intelligence does not guarantee survival. Beauty can attract danger. Long memory can become a liability in rapidly changing worlds. The macaw's struggle mirrors challenges faced by many species, including humanity itself, in an era defined by acceleration. And yet, there is something profoundly hopeful in the macaw's persistence. Each flight across a damaged canopy is an act of continuity. Each successful fledgling represents knowledge passed forward. Each intact pair bond is a declaration that connection still matters.